The following program does not reflect the views of CKMS 100.3 Sound FM. And this is Covert Reality, and your host, Chad Kazarin. We're on October 7th, 2016, and we have a very special edition broadcast. For all you new listeners, this is a broadcast station, FM 100.3 for Waterloo, Canada, and this is broadcasting all over the world and on your FM dial in Waterloo. And just want to mention that this program is about geoengineering and the spraying of our planet and the invasion of Mother Earth. Now there's different parts to this invasion on Mother Earth. You'd have to, one side we're being attacked by being sprayed, but then you have to have some other clearance on the other side, because there's liability that comes from that. And then we have to really kind of figure out where this liability goes to. Who's responsible for the fallout? What allows these operations to take hold when there's an ownership on the ground and I guess a supposed ownership in the sky right now? And we have to figure out, are these ownerships and these nefarious projects, are they legitimate, or are they very non-legitimate and very evil? And the latter is the right choice. What we have to understand today on Covert Reality is this: if we want to make a choice for anything, for free energy, to bring in, to protect Mother Earth, to do the right thing on the planet, we need to have full sovereignty. We need to have full availability to be able to do that without anybody putting a lid or a limit or a cap or a decision that limits anyone on the planet from moving past an oppressive system like carbon taxation. So if you're a new listener, I welcome you to Covert Reality, and if you're a regular listener, I thank you very much, because your listener base is getting up more. And I just want to say this special edition today is about learning about the land we live on, the Haldeman Tract, which is 6 miles each side of the Grand River, and upward as well, which I mentioned many times before. We have to understand that these free energy, moving ahead availability we have in our grasp is held back. It's held back, and we're going to prove this today, and we're going to be explaining. So I want everybody listening to please get your pen and paper out and jot down as much as you can, because this is a thing that you're going to have to understand. The Mohawks of the Grand River have been going through this for a long time. They have had the Haldeman Proclamation since 1784. They had a pledge promise that was granted to them in 1779 to Joseph Brant. And this land along the tract here, 6 miles from each side of the Grand River, was granted. But there was much more land in the beginning. So, when even natives, they know, well, anyone that's got a native heart knows we got to protect Mother Earth. Now these nefarious programs will attack these entities that are protecting Mother Earth. It doesn't matter what color you are now. It doesn't matter at all. It's whoever stands up against Mother Earth is being treated the exact same way. And the only way that these people would be able to get away with it is if they owned the land. Because how would you get away with spraying a planet, or taking advantage of it, or hijacking the land registry system, which is exactly what we're going to be explaining today. But what's going to start off is an amazing inventor. And I have two guests here today. I'm really glad to announce Martin McDermott is here with us. He is an inventor, a musician, recluse. He's got an invention of a vacuum implosion alternator, and you know, I have to be honest, I forgot my laptop today, so I'm going on my mind here, but it's an actual powered system that runs wireless for the Haldeman. It's an idea we're touching upon, but this is what we're going to be explaining today. It's also a banking system as well, but it's all wireless. But this is the thing. We have ideas, we have things that we want to explore in our world, because we should have that right to. But there's a company called Terranet that is pretty much hijacked the land registry. And we need to understand these elements too, of how our whole planet is being hijacked and areas are taken over and taken advantage of. So, and I want to introduce the second guest, which I'm very, very honored to have on the program today. Chief Bill Squire is here with us in the station, and he will be filling in for you beautiful people a little bit of information on the history of the Haldeman Tract here. On the land that you live on, and might not even realize that, you know, just to know about the Turo Wampum and the agreements that subside in these beliefs, and not even a belief, it's just it's a way of being. The nature of us is important to keep grounded in our society, but there's nefarious programs out there that are trying to hold it back. And so what I'm going to be doing is having a split guest special edition today, and we're going to be starting off with Martin McDermott. I apologize for that. I said I wouldn't get the name wrong. Martin McDermott is here. He's an inventor and very amazing person I want to introduce to Covert Reality. He's an inventor and someone that reminds me of Tesla or Victor, Schauberger?
Schauberger.
And you know, he's very influenced by them, and he reminds me of a person like Tesla. This reminds me of a time like in 1909 when Tesla's technology was going through the same thing. The military was sort of taking over that. This is sort of what's going on here. So Martin, I want you to explain what amazing invention and idea you have for the Haldeman, and I'll just let you have the floor from here on. Welcome to Covert Reality.
Thank you, Chad. It's a pleasure to be here on your radio station, and it's a real pleasure to be here and to understand that we are living in new times, and there is a new world order, and there is something that is amiss in our land registry, that it has become totally detached from the Ontario government or any supervision therein. Basically, the land registry runs on a database, and that database was created starting in 1991 by the giving of a secret contract to digitize the whole of the Ontario land registry. What happened was that this Terranet company went into each and every land registry office and claimed to have digitized all the deeds and all the documents therein and put them into an archival retrieval system. That did not really happen. And what ended up happening was that they had contracted out to subcontractors that ended up having to be fired. And so there's some documents that are not quite accurate in the land registry. Now what happened and got me involved in this land registry is that my mother's property in Ancaster got stolen. How that happens is a very clever scheme that is worked within the software itself. The Law Society of Upper Canada, the Canadian Bar Association of Ontario, and especially the Attorney, Chief Legal Officer, and Secretary of the Board of Terranet Corporation, Agostina Russo. Now unfortunately there's a collaboration that's happened between Agostina Russo and the Director of Land Titles, Mr. Jeffrey Lem. Now Jeffrey Lem has a difference of opinion about the quality of the software that's holding our land registry.
Oh.
Now that difference of opinion is that you can read it in a 4-page letter that all decisions on who has the property rights in a contest of a stolen land title is determined by the Law Society of Upper Canada in a special location therein called the bailiwick. On page 3, he says the bailiwick makes these decisions. And now he defers to the bailiwick, but the interesting thing is that he's working for the Ontario government. He's not working for Terranet. He's not working for the Law Society of Upper Canada. He's not working for the Canadian Bar Association. He is working for the people of Ontario, and he decided that he would not open up an investigation into the stolen land title of my mother. And when he didn't do that, that told me that this is a very, very serious problem. So I showed up at David Levac's office, and that was October 31st of 2014. And I brought along 2 witnesses. One was Bill Squire of the Mohawk Workers and his nephew. And we saw David Levac speak about the Ontario Land Registry, Terranet. And on my entry into the door, he looked at the package of papers under my arm and he said, "What have you got there?" And I said, "I've got the dirt on Terranet." And he looked at me and said, "I've heard there's some problems with Terranet." And I looked at him and I said, "What have you heard?" And there was silence. And then he looked at my papers again and he says, "Oh, let's see what you got there." So we went into the meeting and I laid it all out before him that who I caught in my mother's land title, that is taking it from the land registry and conveying it to an unauthorized recipient who went into a bank or didn't go into a bank, but took a mortgage on that property. And so what you have now is a system that works in this sequence. You have a land title theft. Then you have a value fraud in conjunction with a mortgage fraud.
A complete hijacking.
A complete hijacking. And the total isolation from the Ontario government that Jeffrey Lem is not allowed to go into it. And this is a remarkable thing, is that he speaks about the failings of the software and that it's unable to search the back history of a single lawyer, how many times he's used his password, how many properties have been conveyed, how many old widows have gone to their hospital beds without their property or their money. And that's what happened to my mother. She ended up in a hospital bed. Somebody made a decision on the end of her life. She died before she had been able to tell anybody whether she had any knowledge of the sale of her property. That was in Ancaster. Now, the lawyers have access to the system as of the year 2000, and they have a little a USB drive. It's a USB drive, but the old one was a floppy disk. Went into the computer along with the Terranet password that's ascribed to the lawyer, and then the lawyer has, at what you could say, the top architecture level within the software to actually convey title and go through a kind of convoluted process that works with, of course, the buyer's lawyer and the seller's lawyer. But if the buyer's lawyer and the seller's lawyer is the same lawyer, nobody knows that that mortgage-free property doesn't have to go through a bank. And so therefore, it's an isolated incident of what I call a cybercrime.
Nice way to put it.
Okay? Because a cybercrime involves only the computer itself to commit the crime. And that's what I am saying that the lawyers have now.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. You know, and we have to understand too, what creates, you know, our just, you know, this is really important. I want to stress again, everyone, to get a piece of paper and a pen out, just to jot some of these things he's about to talk about. Is going to be speaking about his inventions too, but right now we're explaining on, we're explaining different things right now on the seriousness of the implication of why our land is literally being taken over, why we are being hijacked here, and so this is really important to go through that.
72 lawyers.
So what I would like to, you know, I'd like to actually ask you a question if you don't mind me interjecting. It may fit
Not at
here,
all.
it may not.
I'm happy to answer any questions.
How did you meet Bill? Because I really like that story of how it brought to you to come and meet Bill Squire at the Mohawk.
I'm glad you asked that, because that's one of the most important things in this whole story, is that I said, geez, this is a really weird land registry once it got digitized. What was it before that? And then we didn't have land titles. There was no land title digital number before that. We had a parcel map and we had roll numbers that determined the exact geographic location of our properties. Right. Now GIS surveying and information isn't that difficult. That's like a science. But the magic, or the hocus pocus is what I call it, happens inside the software by clever lawyers who know how to work the system and know that at the Law Society they will get all the blocking they need. And that's the problem.
Right.
Like how I met Bill was because I decided that I would start to do a documentary on the history of land title, conveyance, and the ownership of land in Canada.
Yeah.
And so I first went back to, of course, 1763. Okay, because this was the time where the Royal Proclamation granted a certain amount of rights to natives, a certain amount of rights to the governors and the crown. And so what we found eventually is that the American Revolution came and the Mohawk of the Grand River under Chief Joseph Brand was asked by Guy Carleton to formulate a military that would assist the British in holding back the advancement of American forces. And because Joseph Brand went out and was able to convince a number of the others, such others of the Six Nations, not all of them, but many of them, and they were able to join, as were other natives that do not get credit for their bands and their tribes that came together to stop American forces. That was the American Revolution.
Right.
Now, after the American Revolution was done, Mohawk defenses were disbanded by John Graves Simcoe as he developed something called the Queen's Rangers.
Interesting.
Which were going to be the next paramilitary force under his command, it would seem. John Graves Simcoe was a strange personality. And you have to understand that he was a clever man, but he was tricky. And what he did is he tricked the Mohawk and those such others and believed, or had other people believe, that there was an agreement for him to manage their lands. And he was going to assign Indian agents that were going to collect lease amounts, and they're going to be remitted back to the Six Nations chiefs to be used for however they chose to use those monies to advance their culture. And that didn't happen. What ended up happening is he got invested in the Grand River Navigation Company, among other things, and they lost all of their money. And then they had these lease lands, the town plot of Brantford itself, which we know now is way behind on their leases.
Oh, yeah.
And their lease payment. And in 1994, there was a meeting in Brantford City Council, and it was discussed with the let's see, Brant MPP at the time was Mayor, now he's Mayor Ron Eddy, but at that time he was MPP of Brant County, Ron Eddy. Now, at that time there was a Mayor Taylor, and they recognized this debt in council meetings. They recognized that the debt at that time was estimated to be $250 billion. Would Bill like to say something on that?
I'd just like to say that Jane Stewart was also a member of that committee that did the investigation on the lands, and she later on became Minister of Indian Affairs.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah, see, so once we fill in all the pieces, we understand where the state of the Haldimand is right now. And what I'm proposing with Bill and the others is that we consider monetizing that $700 billion today, because in 1994 it was $250 billion. And they recognized the debt. That's the important thing, is it was recognized. So today it must be recognized with interest accrued, estimated to be over $700 billion. Now that's equity in today's terms of money. I have property on the Birch Tract, it's part of this Haldimand Tract, and that's why I came to meet Bill, to find out how my property could have been conveyed, because I went back to chief and council meetings as far back as I could read, and I read everything I could in committee transcripts and everything. And I could find that they were still arguing in 1845 for the birch tract to be included in the so-called reservation. They were told to concentrate themselves as a single body. And when they were all being forced off of their other lands that they had cleared for farming and all that sort of thing, I had discovered that my land was part of a branch lease. And it's part of a Haldeman tract, and I'm just a half a kilometer from the Six Nations territory. Now, Bill knows a lot about my land because his family lives just across the section over onto the next roadway there on Bateman Line. So I had to go find these people called the Mohawk of the Grand River. And it took me a good year to find the individuals that I believe are the rightful inherent descendants of these people who are the ancestors of those people who are the signatories of the Haldeman.
A lot of digging.
And I found them.
Yes.
As you tried to do it as well, I think, right?
Well, see, that's...
And then you found them as well,
Yeah, well,
eventually, because you have to
we were
take
both
an
kind
effort
of
to do that.
wondering, like, what is going on here? And I was looking at it more on the Security and Prosperity Partnership Agreement 2005. I go from that only because it was one of the most modern agreements outside of the TPP that actually has the SPP in the TPP, which sold our country away in 2005 to North American Union. So that's where I was kind of studying. And then with the chemtrails, spraying Mother Earth, that was something that was just unbelievable. And I want to say this again for all the listeners that the Mohawks, I want to say proudly, this is not putting down anyone else, but I just want to say it's a fact. Mohawks were the first to talk to anyone here concerning chemtrails and spraying the planet. So I just want to say thank you, because we're putting up billboard campaigns for that, and we'll have a Mohawk billboard up in Caledonia for spraying the planet. Again, this is a special edition of Covert Reality Today, folks. So I just want to kind of keep things within Haldeman here. So yeah, I want to talk about the billboard campaign for a second. Just if you want to donate to Mohawk Chemtrail Billboard Campaign, please do donate to byebyebluesky.com, and there's all sorts of different campaigns there for you to choose from to donate to. So yeah, getting back to Martin McDermott and Bill Squire here at Covert Reality, I do want to, this is really interesting to me, because so you met Bill around that time, and then you discussed, just ideas of what we can do. We all have discussed ideas of what we can do. Just looking at our future, looking at what we got right now, and being prepared for the future brings about, these ideologies, and we're really proud to have those ideologies said on today's program. So I hope you're got your pen and your paper out there, and you're listening in. We're going to be listening to Martin McDermott talking about ideas of, free energy for the Haldeman, and complete with monetizing it, but without any sort of transaction hiccup of middleman, just a straight transaction. And we will leave that up to him. I don't want to talk much about that. I will leave the expert on the actual developer and inventor speak about that. So I'll let you carry on.
Yes, thank you again, Chad. So anyhow, to continue where I was off, it was that John Simcoe, first of all I want to say that after the American Revolution, in 1784, there was a King's Proclamation signed by King George III, recognized the gallant efforts of the Mohawk and such others that had joined them in opposing American forces, the American Revolution. And at the end of that, there was the agreement. But prior to the agreement, there was a preamble. And this is the most important part that I think that the white people and the settlers and such others that are coming to the Haldeman territory have to pay attention to this, is that Joseph Brant, the Captain Joseph Brant of British military, you see, but he was a chief to the Mohawk, and he was asked to do this, and they wrote up the document, and it was called the Haldeman Pledge, and it was first written up by Guy Carleton, and then it had to be rewritten because it got lost. So in 1779, Joseph Brand made sure that it was rewritten and it was in print. And so I want to say that by today's standards of corporate law and corporate structure, that the Haldeman Pledge is the actual contract, and that I see the Haldeman Proclamation signed by King George III, and ordered by that, you see, was effectively the payment and the receipt for the payment. You see, in those kinds of contractual terms. Now I'll give you a little bit of my background, okay, because I'm not a novice about this. I have medical imaging experience. I started the company in 1991, and that company has now failed because of the time it's taken me to get through the Teranet documentation for all you people here in Ontario. So effectively my company is bankrupted. I'm on the edge of bankruptcy, and I live on a property that I can't sell anything other than to a qualified native of the recipients of the Haldeman. And then my property, as it is right now, is in the Mohawk Land Registry. And when I first came to Bill, I said, surely King George had a land registry that identified your lands. And Bill said, without, inside of a heartbeat, he said, of course he did. And so that tells me that the Mohawk had a land registry that predates the Ontario Land Registry of 1795. Now in 1793, that's when Simcoe does what's called the Simcoe deed, saying that he'll manage all of these properties on behalf of the Six Nations.
That's
and
John
remit.
John Simcoe?
John Simcoe, John Graves Simcoe. Yeah, he's a very important person in history.
Yes.
And we have to pay attention to exactly what he did that set up what was called a family compact. So if you look up family compact of John Simcoe, you will find a very interesting history there. Because what I'm saying right now today is that Agostino Russo, John Russo, Jeffrey Lamb, and a number of others within the bailiwick of the Law Society have set up something very similar called a family compact. And we have to break that family compact to make sure that that collusion does not happen and cannot sustain itself. And we have to have a designated police, because all of my complaints to the Law Society,
Right.
all of my complaints to the Director of Land Titles, all of my complaints to the Deputy Director of Land Titles, all of my emails to Dave Levac back and forth, all of my emails to David Arazi back and forth, all of my emails to Mario Sergio, Minister responsible for seniors, back and forth, they all say local police. But Hamilton local police say, no, we don't have the jurisdiction.
Yeah, see, this is where I find this is good. I don't mean to interject, but I feel the need to. See, this is where exactly I wanted to get at with this program today. We're being attacked by the same bully system that runs everywhere else. Now you notice everyone in the geoengineering issue, you're trying to do something about it. What happens there? You go to your authorities and they don't even really know how to deal with it at all, but they're pushing it also just to that measure. And there's really nothing that's, when something's nefarious and something's hidden from real, people-funded programs, and someone's taking advantage of it, these things happen. We have to keep our eye on the ball, folks. But anyway.
Yeah. So anyhow, as we learned, from John Simcoe, that holding the land registry in your back pocket or in anybody's back pocket isn't a good idea.
Right.
And John Simcoe had not many types of land that was available, and that was clergy land, school land, Indian land, and crown land. And those were the 4 types of land that he had in his database that he held in his back pocket. Now we've got a guy named Agostino Russo who's responsible for any improvements in that software that might be suggested. And I suggested some improvements because I am a database developer. I had database developer training in 1999. And I went down to San Diego and was in a FileMaker Pro developer program there. And so when I look at my skills as a developer in medical imaging systems, archival and retrieval systems, and I've got credentials in servicing medical imaging equipment and highly complicated computerized systems, I look at this land registry as something that is infantile, that is run by really, technically, inept people. And Agostino Russo is one of them. He wants to say that Jeffrey Lam's criticisms of the Ontario Land Registry software, TerraView, write down TerraView, everybody, because that's a very important word to write down.
And how would you spell that?
TerraView. TerraView. Now, TerraView is the software that is holding our land registry and is easily accessible to any lawyer who'd come out of Osgoode Hall. Okay, so any lawyer that gets a license to practice law can get a license to the Ontario Land Registry, and they don't have to be a real estate professional to do that. Because when these people sell property, a realtor doesn't know, the owner doesn't know, the family doesn't know,
Right.
the power of attorney doesn't know of that elderly person, which I made clear to Mario Sergio to understand that. This is the minister responsible for seeing this, but he doesn't really have a care yet.
Right.
And I tracked him down on Elder Abuse Awareness Day, and I videoed him running from my questions, and my cousin was with me. Now, we also tracked down some other people who are inside this Ontario Land Registry system, and the worst offender of all is the current sitting MP, Hamilton West, Ancaster Dundas. I write her name down, everybody. Philomena Tassi, MP, Hamilton West, Ancaster Dundas. Now, Philomena Tassi had befriended my mother. Philomena Tassi was seen in my mother's house. Philomena Tassi is business partner with my brother-in-law, Paul Morrison, Catholic religion teacher at Bishop Thomas High School. Philomena Tassi is believed to be the one at the computer with her husband's password and diskette in 2006 in May. But there was a transfer attempt that was done 1 month earlier that I have the documents and I printed them out. And that transfer was for $10,000 less at $130,000. And when I confronted Agostino Russo about where did those documents go, they're no longer in the system, he explained to me that TerraNet goes back into the documentation that has been prepared by lawyers, and they adjust those documents. And what he said to me is that they clean up the unfinished business left behind in the system by lawyers. Clean up the unfinished business.
Right, so we can go ahead and, develop projects.
Well, I called that evidence. I said to him, I said, well, when I do get to the right relevant police, because relevant police is an interesting term here,
Right.
because that's what he is suggesting that I try and find in one of his emails to me. And that I just find scandalous, in that after I called his software, crapware, conware, sleazeware, dupeware, whatever you want to call it, anything other than land title software.
Right.
I got a letter from him, a communication email from him, telling me that if I don't cease and desist from that, he's going to come and sue me.
Yeah, and this is the thing, this is what happens when a bully just, knows that they're really being, this is the thing, when more people know about this information, you can give emails to the people that are causing oppression, you can give emails to them, but when it's only one person that's at them, they can almost consider it like a mosquito almost, but at the same time they're so frustrated that you're there speaking the truth. And that's what we need to find, is these people getting frustrated, and they do write it down in the notes. They'll even know the documentation is there. You see in a lot of the notes that are given to him regarding to Michael, sorry, I don't know why I keep saying Michael, Martin McDermott, when he gets his responses back. It's the same as what the chemtrail people are getting back too. You just get people frustrated saying, if you come here, they just, they start to even say, well, we'll start throwing you in a van and beat you up if you talk to us again. It's kind of like, and it shows a bully side that they're hiding something. So, but what I want to do here, because we're at 1:35, we have 25 minutes in the program. I do want you to, because this is really important information to understand the people involved. So this is probably maybe the first program that's ever mentioned the people involved in controlling land registry, which follows up a long line of reasons why a lot of other things have gone cahoots. So, but I do want to speak about your beautiful monetary wireless invention for the Haldeman. I'm really excited to want to hear about that. Is there any way we can work that in?
Well, yeah, basically, okay. What I'll do very quickly is I'll just
We'll spend like 10, 15
round it
seconds
off
on
that people need to understand that they can go to a website right now, okay, and write this down. It's called TerranetClassAction.com. And I want
TerranetAction.com.
ClassAction.com.
Okay. TerranetClassAction.com. That's TERANET. ClassAction.com.
ClassAction.com. And when you go to that website, you'll see affidavits of a Valentine and a buckle. And you can read those into those documents. You have to scroll well down. And then you'll see how Terranet actually got formed. It was formed by a consortium of Saudi Arabians that came with a lot of money, and one man named Mohammed Al-Zaibak, who used a rocket scientist, Dr. Philip Lapp, to sell the deal to Art Daniels. Art Daniels was Assistant Deputy Minister of the Registration Division, Ministry of Consumer and Corporate Relations. Now these are all leaked documents now, because this document was never meant to see the light of day. It was a secret agreement privatizing the Ontario Land Registry in 1991. And the most important thing to note is that CBC did a Fifth Estate real expose on the history of Terranet. And I got just a little bit deeper when I got into the Panama Papers and the offshore papers, and I found Terranet Global Systems, or Terranet Global Solutions. And when you look at that, you can see the connections. So if anybody's familiar with how to get and navigate into the offshore papers, it's very simple. You can just query that on your Google. And you can go into the offshore papers yourselves, and you can see some companies that would not exist if it wasn't for Terranet papers preceding those offshore papers. So the registration starts in the Terranet papers. And one offender of our region, of the Haldeman, has over 5,000 acres registered to them. And that is Walton International.
Right, Walton.
And Walton International has a really nifty way of using the Ontario Land Registry to do equity private placement over in Malaysia and Singapore and Japan and the other locations where they had offices before they had to close them down.
Right, and I just want to bring this up again, in case people didn't catch that before. I want to make this loud and clear, everybody. When I did some information on, because these are like Saudi Arabia has a lot of connections within what's going on in today's policy, because they're like been bullied by the U.S. Involved in a fake war on terror. At the same time, they're involved in, land registry, and I just want to be straight up here that Saudi Arabia, now we're still trying to figure the exact people, we might even have their exact names. Ali Chandra is someone that's a player, not quite sure where he's affiliated with, but I do want to say this, make this loud and clear. Terranet was started as a startup. The startup money to build Terranet was first brought in by Saudi Arabia.
That's right, and it was in the committee room where it was admitted that there was $5 million, which I call chump change to Saudi Arabian, but he threw it on the table, and this was during the Peterson government. Okay, so they had prearranged pretty much that Terranet was going to get this contract. There wasn't going to be any competitive bids that were worthy of any real input by the other consortium of investors. And that's very important to note, is that there was never a competing bid. But the most important point is that how this Walton group coming into Brant County area, buying up all this land just outside of Hamilton Greenbelt, you see, because in Greenbelt, you can't develop these kinds of schemes. But what we're experiencing now is a land transfer between Brant County and Brantford City. And that is to convey some of these lands that have already been acquired by Walton.
Yeah. When was that? Do you know when they've been acquired? When that?
Geez, I don't know when the lands were first acquired.
Because I read a lot about
Do you
Walton
know much
recently.
about that, Bill, when they first acquired lands?
No, I don't. I think you had some documents on the transfers when it was made. I think there should be dates on it.
Yes, actually, I do have some well, yes, okay, that was an interesting point, is that I've got these transfer documents that show Walton International actively engaged in value fraud. They transfer a company from one of their subsidiaries to another one, back again to a number company, and another group of investors, and then finally it's back again to the very same company that originally bought it from somebody who didn't put a for sale sign up on their property, didn't have a realtor involved in the deal, had only a lawyer, I believe, from Gowlings, you know, the copyright patent company,
Right.
you know, legal firm. But I think it was that lawyer that conveyed that property. And again, you've got buyers and sellers, right? And you're all being represented by the same lawyer at an architectural level on the software.
And he's acting as
It's
two
very
different
high.
people too,
Yeah,
this lawyer.
yeah. Well, you see, what he's representing is 250 Malaysians on 125 acres of Brant County farmland.
Wow. Wow.
Now, when we're talking farmland, you think about farmland as growing, you know, what farmers grow and how farmers work that land. But when a farmer sells his land unsuspectingly to a tricky operative that is working for an offshore group of people
Right.
that are building equity
This
in
is
our
serious.
property, and they're not paying capital gains.
Right.
Okay, so they're avoiding all the capital gains.
It makes the system in balance entirely.
And I've challenged my MPs and others that we can collect those capital gains by simply taking the TerraNet documented, what they got in their database, parsing out the information properly, and we can catch all of those lawyers that have done value fraud, title theft, and all of the other crimes that are sitting latent or resident within the Ontario Land Registry.
And I want to bring this up too. A lot of this bullying is going on all across the board right now. There's something going on right now, folks. And if you guys are not looking, I do want to bring this up. I just got the word in from Nature's Vibe is a company downtown Cambridge that I promote on the show because they have natural food products, and the same thing's happened to them, where everything all at once right now is being taken over, from our land, our air, even our own molecules, and even our own nano technology systems are overriding everybody too. But what my point is that I don't want to lose track of what my point was. I think I might have. Nature's Vibe had just told me that because I told them that I mentioned their program and their store on the program once in a while, and she said, "Oh, please talk about this on this Friday's program, please, because we're about to lose our rights as natural food product." So just letting everyone know, a lot of things are happening right now with the pharmaceutical agencies in Canada here are trying to take over the natural food industry. So I want you to look up that too, because there's lots of facets, but what we're doing in this program, there will never be a program where we will waste your time. We're here to tell you, the people, the players, we're trying to understand how we're being governed. We're trying to cut corners here so people understand what kind of headaches they will go through, and they will find at the end of the road it's a nefarious program that's stopping free energy, that's stopping when our banking system was taken over in '74 and made it into private banking. What happened? We had Waterloo region, Cambridge was amalgamated into Cambridge, right? It was Galt, Preston and Hesper was amalgamated into Cambridge. That was only a business name, Cambridge. It's just a business name because the private banks came in. Now that's another facet of it, and we can pinpoint that to being our the father of our current Prime Minister. You know, Pierre Trudeau was the one that sold our banking system off, which, you know, opened up the doors for private banking and the interest on loans, which brings these nefarious programs. Because if you get unbalanced checks, you get you know, just digitized things. You get people that are dishonest and they will mess around with things and give people a headache when they want to bring in a beautiful invention, similar to the two-row, which I'd like you to explain something about the two-row.
I'd be happy to. I'd actually be happy to invite Bill in on this as well, because this is what I understood when I first met with Bill and the Mohawk workers, is this strong adherence to this principle of their ancestors and something that came from what was called the Great Peace and the Great Peacemaker and his translator Hiawatha, and that we understood something that these people, distinct people of 5 different nations, came together under a great peace, and that was called the Iroquois Confederacy of the Great Peace. And they had, of course, wars on their periphery that were with other native bands that would not accept the Great Peace, and they adopted many tribes into the Great Peace. So you understand that they had a structure and they had a place for adjudicating any conflicts between neighboring nations, but they were all distinct communities that were coming together to no longer do war and to live in harmony in an area that they called the Dish with One Spoon, and out to the New York coast. And so this area that they called was an area called the Longhouse, I believe it was. It was a figurative term, people of the Longhouse.
Yeah.
And so it was a united people and the rafters in the Longhouse, and there was the stories about the Longhouse and the importance and significance of everybody being under one jurisdiction that could adjudicate problems. And so when Bill explained the two-row to me, and I'll explain it very quickly, is that when 2 canoes are going down the river or across the lake, and they're deciding that these people are doing business with one another, and it starts out with a rope, and eventually over many years of successive dealings with one another, they arrive at what's called the Silver Covenant Chain. And that is the highest level of the two-row that you can achieve, business to business. But if in the process you're working up and you're doing really business well and working together really well, and some kind of conflict comes between you two, you have a right to undo your rope and let that other canoe float free from you. And there's no long, complicated legal process and quagmire that you have to go through to undo that rope and release yourself from that two-row commitment. But the two-row commitment is a challenge to one's personality and character just as much as it is a means by which people can be bound by an agreement. And so when you get a corporate structure today where people are now understood that vice president can change, CEO can change, any of the directors can change, and you've got one native band with a designated representative to make communications with that corporation. How does that corporation have sensitivity to respect the two-row of those people, and to respect that at the end of anything that might go wrong, there's no long legal obligation for people to bring in lawyers and fight it out in white man's court? And that's the problem that we have today, is that the natives are separated from us because we're telling them that they have to adjudicate all of their problems in our courts. And they have a process for adjudicating these problems, and it didn't go on forever, and it didn't take years, like I'm taking years to get through the Taranet and get charges on the people who stole my mother's property.
Right, so, yeah, okay, how can we speak about the free energy idea that you have? Because we have only about 10 minutes left on the program.
Oh, okay, oh wow, okay. Well,
Yeah,
then,
absolutely.
Let's
Bill
give Bill some
Squire,
time here.
Chief
No,
Mohawk, please.
I would just like to thank Chad for inviting me here, and along with Martin here, and I come basically as an observer, and I'm learning also, and I want to, Chad and I had talked about this before, maybe we can do another segment, you know.
Absolutely.
Certainly Martin has his ideas about our history and everything, but I would
There's
certainly
lots
like,
to say.
I would like sometime, maybe in the future, to come up here and spend more time and talk specifically
We'd be
about the Haldeman, the Mohawks, the Six Nations, and the Haldeman tribe.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. We do have an hour program, folks. We're gonna try to get it to maybe possibly 2 hours, because these topics, like I had mentioned before in the program, that we were gonna be having a few of these programs to educate us for what's going on. We wanna have 2 or 3 of these programs to educate people on what land they live on, what's going on, just to at least respect and you know, just respect really, and to just learn about, like if you go anywhere else, you know, you go to visit someone else's land, you respect what that land is, and you respect, you know, how people are. And so that's all we're trying to do here, is to let people understand the history of the Mohawks and the land that was granted to Joseph Brant and the Mohawks, and for us to just kind of respect and hold dearly the fabric of Mother Earth, and to protect it at all cost. I mean, bravery has to shoot through. We have to stick our heads out of from the turtle shell, especially nowadays. And I want to say thank you to Martin McDermott and Bill Squire for being here today. Martin McDermott has been very vocal for in defense of the Mohawks land entitlement, and I'm really honored to have you here, because when I hear you speak, and I'm still blown away. I've been to your house. I've seen your you know, the beginnings of your...
My inventions.
Yeah,
You've
your
seen some of
invention.
my-
I don't even want to speak
he's-
of them,
he's one
because
of
they're
the-
Tesla-related things, right? So I can't speak of them.
Yeah, well, he's one of the few people who have seen it, and the people that I want to invite to my house, because I find it ironic that this man especially is involving himself in the maker movement, and here in the Waterloo, Kitchener area, where we are actually developing what's called a technical innovation hub. And I really do appraise these people who are getting involved in this. And one is John Ruffolo, CEO of OMERS. Now, OMERS is the Ontario Municipal Employees Retirement System. And now OMERS owns a company called Borealis, which is their investment arm, and Borealis owns TerraNet. So I am challenging John Ruffolo to pick up the phone and call Agostino Russo and ask him where that deleted documentation of a $130,000 attempt on my mother's property, which is evidence, which Hamilton Police will at one point have to accept. They are to comply with the Attorney General's communication that I have in an email following many meetings with people and following through with my communications to Dave Levac and his staffer, that we've got a big problem and we still don't have the name of the committee that has oversight over TerraNet. So I'm challenging John Ruffolo, because I'm asking him to understand that I was part of this maker movement.
How do you spell his last name?
R-U-F-O-L-O, I believe,
Okay.
Ruffolo. And oh, I've got his name right here actually, because he is listed as Canada's #3 most powerful business people. And the most powerful business person mentioned after him in this Canadian business magazine is Justin Trudeau,
Wow.
#4. And now Justin Trudeau has to confront Philomena Tassi and ask her for all of those documents that are related to my mother's transfer and why I can't get access to my mother's medical records to show my mother met an untimely death in Hamilton Health Sciences, Juris Cancer Center / Henderson Hospital back then. And the decision was made by Paul Morrison, Philomena Tassi's business partner, in Charity Foosball. Now, Philomena Tassi is running 2 phony charities, and they're phony because they don't have any registration One was called Charity Foosball and the other one is called Dreams. You can see, Chad, right there, is a communication from the Diocese of Hamilton.
Right.
And a bishop that when he was a priest in Ancaster, I had met him and had shown him documents related to Paul Morrison and title transfer, and that it was suspected that there were others involved in the religion department at Bishop Thomas High School, where Philomena Tassi once worked. Now the background of Philomena Tassi is quite interesting. She was at one time doing computer work for John Monroe, I believe it was. Now John Monroe was an Indian Affairs minister at one time, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And so we find it all kind of funny and ironic and circular in some ways that Philomena could go onto a computer system with her husband's password, James W. Oliver of Turkstra Mazda, and she could transfer a property to her religion teacher, that's my brother-in-law, sight unseen, and that he could take up the mortgage, and that my sister could come before her family and say she didn't go into a bank, and she didn't understand how this title transfer happened, and she's no more aware than anybody else in the family, but now she's estranged because a bully got a hold of her and took her from our family. Now, she is estranged, Paul Morrison is estranged, and all the others of the family are estranged. And so the aunts and the uncles want to know where Amelia's money went. It was $140,000 transfer that was done on May 4th of 2006. And I believe that property was conveyed from a computer inside Bishop Thomas High School, Ancaster, Ontario, and that the money went to buy foosball tables that went into Catholic high schools, and I could verify it went into many Catholic high schools and got a lot of money. And I've got documents to show how much money they allege to have sent down to the Dominican Republic to a charity.
Wow. So this is about the Haldeman tract here and what's going on. If you want to develop, would it be safe to say that if anyone out there, simply because I know this is a two-part type thing, that you're actually kind of just trying to get, well, and it is, but it's not though. Once people understand that this same person, Martin McDermott here, has been trying to do the work of free humanity and to try to do goodness like anyone else.
Renewable energy project.
Renewable energy project.
I have an invention of my own that works on an energy transfer system that is unique. It has never been done before, and it runs off of, you know those old grain silos that you see abandoned without the tops on them all over the countryside?
Yeah.
It's a system that mounts up on top of that, and it will look similar to the old Dutch-style windmills. It's a drag-based system that creates vacuum, translates vacuum to my alternator, and my alternator whips around those neodymium magnets past field coils in the context of Michael Faraday electromagnetic induction. See, Michael Faraday wrote the book on electromagnetic induction, and we should give him a great deal of gratitude for what he had done, because he laid the groundwork for Nikola Tesla. And Nikola Tesla had acknowledged that it was Michael Faraday and all of his documents that he was able to work with his numbers and calculate out all of these wonderful energy devices that he created. Oh, we're running low on time, I see, but we could do another hour, I understand.
Oh, absolutely. See, this is the thing. I
And
always
I
come
have
in
to tell you
here.
more about ozone therapy and how we built those devices back out west, and we almost ended up in prison for doing that.
So today's program, I know it's a lot for everyone to understand, but what I really want to make a big point on is that if you are someone that has the capacity and the heart to want to develop free energy, these are the things you're going to be going through. And so we need to actually really find out who's making these land entitlement decisions behind our back, because we're being sprayed from above and we're being pretty much taken advantage of from below. So we got to really think about where we live, our surroundings, everything about who we are, and we want to give great thanks to our guests today, Martin McDermott and Bill Squire. the Mohawks, and just want to say thank you very much. We will definitely be having you back on the program again, and that will definitely happen probably within, maybe over the next month or two. We can have you in again a couple times.
Well, we have to have the follow-up from John Ruffalo,
Oh, right.
okay?
Okay.
But he's gonna accept the challenge.
Right, okay, well, that's it for Covert Reality today. My name is Chad Kazner, and I've went over my time now. I will talk to you next week. Have a great weekend.